Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see you on this boiling hot morning here in Bury St Edmunds. Yeah, just about getting some feeling back in my toes after being outside, so welcome you all. But I'm delighted that you can join us today, and also those joining us online as well. Big welcome. There's a fine array of Christmas jumpers around the Westroad site here of Bridge Community Church. I didn't quite get that memo, but so glad to see some of them. I think John Campbell's maybe winning with his in particular. Thank you, John. Model there. There we go. Woo! So we are expecting to see a lot more of those come the carol service on Christmas Eve. And of course, we've got a service here at 10 o'clock as well on Christmas Day. But I'm delighted you can join us for this mini Christmas series when we think about the gift of Christmas. That sense of presence, as in stuff, or presence, as in that sense of people being around us. What are we looking for this Christmas? Maybe in terms of the stuff, we're going to be struggling a bit this year with the financial utility crisis, all this kind of thing, bills going up through the roof. Maybe God's calling us to something deeper. Maybe God's calling us more to enjoy the presence of people. And so we started last week during the brilliant nativity service talking about a savior and a rescuer is present amongst us. And this week we want to move on to the subject of family. What comes to mind when we think about family? Is it a gift? Or is it something we struggle with a little bit sometimes at Christmas time? I think it really struck me over the last couple of years because we've had to lock down, haven't we, with the COVID restrictions and the problems and the challenges. And during December months in the last 2 years, staff and some of the church leadership, we've been getting out with Christmas gifts and standing on the doorsteps of people. And the thing that struck me as I chatted with people, particularly some of our senior people, was how painful the last couple of years of Christmas was going to be because they couldn't be with family. Kind of really brought it home to them, all the traditions, all the activities, that sense of connection was missing as a result of the lockdown situation we faced during COVID. But for other people, family is going to be a struggle this Christmas time. There's some people who are not going to be there, and the grieving and the pain there. Maybe there's disagreement or argument that's caused separation. Maybe there's that sense of isolation. So family at its best can be a great gift, but at times we recognize it can be incredibly painful, particularly around Christmas time, whether it's our own nuclear family or whether it's our extended family or even within our church family. When family works well, it's a gift from God as we enjoy the presence of each other at this time. And I think it was really brought home to me as Kerry and I, my wife and I, were chatting about what we were going to do this Christmas time. Like everybody else, the financial crisis, the utility bills, everything was impacting our budgets. And Kerry just brought it home to me how important family is. She said, look, I'm prepared to go without presents this year if we can't afford it, as long as we put petrol in the car and we can go and see our family. And for some of us, it's that important, isn't it? It's that gift that God has given us. And so today, my message in terms of presence really is this: you should try to embrace family this Christmas time. Please note the word try in there, because as I said earlier, it's not always easy. There's reasons, there's difficulties, there's struggles, there's disagreements that can make family life incredibly hard and incredibly difficult. But to be honest, in the first century as well, it was tough in order to make family work. And we're going to see through circumstances, external circumstances sometimes can make family life difficult. Secondly, controversies within our families can make family life difficult. And thirdly, family is sometimes just not that convenient, and it can make life difficult. But somehow, we want to see the presence of Jesus invading our families. And we're going to discover that he might want to use me and you as part of that process. So that's my Christmas gift for you today, the sense of presence, the gift around family. We're going to look at Luke chapter 2 in particular this morning. And Luke is a first century account of the life, the times, and the ministries of Jesus of Nazareth. And it's this wonderful blend. It's historical, it's geopolitical, it's really set. No other New Testament writer seems to nail the sort of geopolitical situation of the first century with the Roman soldiers and all those who were involved with it. But then it doesn't hide the supernatural intervention of God. So you've got the reality of life, and then you've got the God interventions. If you were to read Luke chapter 1, angels are appearing from everywhere. There's prophecy going on. There's miracle babies. And this carries on with the birth of Jesus Christ himself in Luke chapter 2, which we're going to look at now. There we go. We'll think about how we try to embrace family despite circumstances. Straight away in Luke 2, verse 1, we see this Roman invasion. This Roman external circumstances made life difficult for the people of God. We read in verse 1, at that time the Roman Emperor Augustus decreed that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. Caesar Augustus ruled from 27 BC to 14 AD. And it was a time of growth for the Roman Empire. They invaded lands, and now to keep their empire together, they're having this tax census. They want to get their slice of money to keep the empire going. And as Pam read earlier, this Roman encounter, these Roman soldiers, they are part of Palestinian life. Some respond to faith, some are oppressive, some are difficult, but either way, there is this external imposement, if you like, on the people of God that made family life difficult. Outside forces were at play here. Oops, gone a bit farther. Still gone too far. That's the one. Sorry. There we go. And we read in verses 2 and 3, this was the first census taken when Quirinius, the governor of Syria, all returned to their own ancestral towns to register for this census. Israel was classed as part of the province of Syria by the Romans, and they had been part of the people who had been invaded, and of course, they all needed to return to their ancestral homes in order to be part of this census. So here we see external circumstances imposing themselves upon family, and family pays the price. People were going to have to return to their ancestral homes. Now, for some people, that was easy. They lived and worked in the town they were born. For other people, it was going to be difficult and complicated. So if this was to happen today, hands up all those who are born and bred in Bury St Edmunds. Oh yeah, we've got a few of you. Life would be easy for you this Christmas time. Yes, dead easy, but for foreigners like me, I have to get my Northern English passport out and return back to north. You know, there's going to be a journey involved to return. This was the impact. Imagine the impact on family. Imagine the impact on your home life as a result of these external circumstances. And of course, Joseph and Mary were no exception to this. As we read in verse 4, Joseph was a descendant of the King David, and he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. So this new family, this couple are going to pay the price for these external circumstances. It wouldn't be what they wanted. It wouldn't be what they planned. But somehow they rolled with what was going on for them. They had to go from Nazareth in the north to Bethlehem in the south, probably a journey of around about 100 miles. So it'd be the equivalent of you getting a donkey today and heading off to Gatwick Airport. That's the kind of distance they were going to have to cover to be part of this situation. And Joseph, even though he was a builder, a carpenter, a manual worker, he actually had royal blood within his veins, just like me. I may have mentioned that once or twice. My COVID exercise of discovering my ancestry, me and Richard II, we're like this. There's blood, royal blood in these Scouse veins. You know, it's okay. And me and Joseph have fallen on hard times, and we're not quite in the palace anymore. And that was true for Joseph. But his family, his ancestral home was there in Bethlehem. And so he rolled with those external circumstances and said, right, let's get back there. And of course we think, yeah, those Romans, aren't they ruining everything? But do you see the sovereignty of God in this? Rome might be carrying out, this human empire might be carrying out their plans and their purposes, but there are greater plans, there are greater purposes, and they are the purposes of God. because it was predicted back in the Old Testament scriptures the Messiah was going to be born in Nazareth? No, Bethlehem. God using external circumstances, external forces, the instruments of God, Joseph just obeying and going with the flow. It was as a result, the predictions, the prophecies were fulfilled. Messiah was going to turn up and the presence of God was going to be felt in this little town. And so Joseph, son of Heli, Mathat, Levi, ultimately King David, entered back into his family lineage in order that Jesus, the promised one, could be born in the right place at the right time. So as you think about your family setting this Christmas, perhaps like us, you're still trying to work out arrangements, you're still trying to sort things out. Perhaps there are external circumstances pressing in on you. Is there any way you can roll with those things and somehow be an instrument in God's hands in order the presence of Jesus might come through? Be a Joseph in this respect. Circumstances can sometimes make family life difficult. Equally, also issues of controversy. We read in Luke 2, verse 5, Joseph took with him Mary, to whom he was engaged, who was now expecting a child. Often families have their secrets, don't they? Secrets they try and keep quiet. This situation, this secret was going to be unable to be kept quiet because Mary was pregnant and eventually she would give birth to a baby. But there's a little bit of controversy around their family life because she was engaged to Joseph, not married. She was expecting a baby, but not married. Now, in that culture, being engaged was almost the same as being married, as two families came together and basically they were declared to be married, but the marriage wasn't consummated until the marriage ceremony. So there'd be questions, there'd be suspicion, there'd be embarrassment, there would be shame. They hadn't strictly broken the law of God, it was the outside image, but they would have some explaining to do. Imagine as they turn up at the ancestral home in Bethlehem. There is Mary with this bump. And they're like, hold on, you guys are not married. And you can imagine Joseph saying, yeah, you've got to hear this explanation why she's pregnant. Imagine sharing that with your extended family. Joseph is like, yeah, I'm not the dad. It was God. We had this angelic visit. And you can imagine the family all nodding their heads, yeah, whatever. You know, it's a secret in a way. It's a dark side. It's controversial. Maybe embarrassing, maybe there's a tension, but don't all our families have that? We don't give up on family just because it's controversial, just because it's messy, just because it's awkward, just because it's difficult or embarrassing or anything like this. Somehow trying to embrace the faith of Joseph, who protects, who cares, who's still prepared to do the right thing and overcome. Maybe this is a challenge for you this Christmas time. Maybe there's some controversy going on in your family and you're not sure what to do. Maybe God's calling you to be that protective influence, that one who can somehow turn that situation around. I know within our own families, I think one of the joys when I first met Kerry was how well our two families got on. Kerry, like my parents and my family, fell in love with her as soon as they met her. So much so, my dad said, you better marry this girl. We like this one. You know, so I had no choice in a way, you know. And when I met Kerry's family, I became the favorite, let's be honest, you know. They got a bit upset, all the favorites here, you know, but it's understandable, isn't it? You know, so we've had this lovely 20-odd year of our families, but as time goes on, there's still controversy, there's still difficulties, there's still disagreements. We've suffered bereavement. We've suffered fallouts, and at times it can be difficult. And somehow at Christmas time, can we try and embrace and bring the presence of God, a faith response, even though we can't understand everything like Joseph couldn't, somehow bringing the presence of God into that situation. Maybe God's calling you to do that this Christmas time. And lastly, trying to embrace family despite it not being convenient. Bit of a warning now. Forgive me, I'm going to probably bust one or two of the Christmas myths in these next two verses. I know we have our nativity plays and all the rest of it, and they're lovely stories, but fundamentally, most of what shapes our nativity plays is 2nd and 3rd century European thinking rather than 1st century Jewish thinking on what actually happened. So forgive me if I burst a myth or two here, but I hope you're going to see the strength of family that comes through as a result of perhaps getting back really to the text and 1st century Jewish culture. We read in verses 6 and 7, while Joseph and Mary were in Bethlehem, the time came for Mary's baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn son. So the first myth I'm going to bust is that Mary and Joseph turned up in Bethlehem on the day that Jesus was born. We have that word while there. In the original Greek, it's the idea of a period of time. Joseph and Mary were in Bethlehem for a period of time. It didn't all happen on the same day. Joseph was not some bumbling idiot who suddenly thought, oh, wow, my fiancée is going to give birth. We better run down 100 miles and get to Bethlehem. And they left it to the last minute. No, he had family there. There was an ancestral home there. There was links there. And they'd been there a while. And it was this classic thing of extended family and hospitality, which was so precious in 1st century Judaism, that they would have been welcomed. Inconvenient, yes, but isn't that what we do at Christmas? Especially when we go and see extended family. The airbeds have got to come out, haven't they? Got to be pumped up at 11 o'clock at night. The sleeping bags have got to be found. Somehow you fit 15 people in one room. It's what we do at Christmas time. We all get stuck in. We all muck in. And we make it work. And this is what was probably taking place in the 1st century here. Just a peasant home, not a palace for the newborn king. But no real sense of this rejection picture that we get from some of our nativity plays. Family embracing Joseph and Mary. Just remember also, Mary's family only lived a couple of miles away. Elizabeth, her cousins, she was embraced by them once they discovered they were pregnant. Joseph's family here in Bethlehem, looking after them. And so we see the baby is born. Mary wrapped the baby snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available for them. Again, very much a tradition of peasant life in Judaism and also even in the ancient Near East now. In the Middle East now, this idea of wrapping a baby in cloths. But of course, the unusual element was this straw manger. And again, with our Western thinking, we have this idea of a stable. 1st century Jewish culture, only rich people had stables. Poor people kept their animals in the house. It was a 2-tier system and 2 rooms within most peasant houses, particularly in the site of Bethlehem. The animals would be brought in the evening, perhaps a goat, a sheep, something like that, after being in the courtyard, and their straw would be in the lower level of the house, and then in an upper level, 2 further rooms, a family room and a guest room. And this word used for lodging here or used for inn in some other translations, strictly speaking in the original Greek just means space. It just means space, katalima. It's just there was no space for them in the place they were meant to be, which in 1st century Judaism would have been in the guest room. So it's highly likely this couple were not rejected, but they were there using the family room. And where the animals were down below, the straw came up and was used as a manger. And again, isn't that part of extended family life? Certainly when we go to visit Kerry's family, they love their dogs, and there's been cats, and we've had all sorts of things in addition to the smell of teenage boys. It's a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere sometimes in the houses we stay in. And this was probably here. But this picture of Jesus right at the center of family life. Inconvenient, but nevertheless part of the extended family, this new family. So in conclusion, I can click on there. Oops, gone too far again. As you think about your Christmas, I want us to pause. What's it looking like for you this Christmas time? Are there external circumstances pressing in around your family life? Is there some controversy that's causing tension in your family life? Is there something about your family life that's inconvenient? What is God asking you to do about your family? Family is a gift when it works at its best. Could we bring some Joseph-like grace, protection, availability in order to bring the presence of Jesus into our family situations, whatever they might look like? I realize for some of us it's impossible. But for others, maybe God wants to have an opening. God wants Jesus to be revealed in whatever family you're set in might be. Struggle, suffering, difficulty, family life is messy. Nothing has changed over the decades and the centuries. It is what it is. But the presence of Jesus wants to be there. And maybe this Christmas time, you are the instrument to make that happen. Within a nuclear family, within extended family, within our church family. Can I encourage you, if you are able, get stuck in. Muck in with family this Christmas time, whatever family that looks like, and bring the presence of Jesus there so we can see transformation. I'm going to invite Anna and the worship team up. We're going to sing another Christmas carol, in particularly focusing on the little infant baby that was born that Christmas time.